Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Parliament may not have been sitting for the past 6 weeks or so, but there's been plenty of debate inside Britain's political parties, with 3 of them holding leadership elections over the summer. Labour's rumbles on, of course, and with Jeremy Corbyn firm favourite to win again, attention is turning to how he'll manage his rebellious MPs. Should Labour MPs who continue to defy their leader be allowed to stand for the party again? Or should they face being deselected? The question of MP selections was one the Labour leader addressed earlier in the summer.
There's going to be, as you know, a total boundary review, which will be, the first report will be out this autumn and it will finally be implemented in 2018. If this Parliament runs to full term, then the new boundaries will be the basis on which selections take place. And in that case, there would be a full selection process in every constituency, but the sitting MP for any part or any substantial part of the new boundary would have an opportunity to put their name forward. So there will be a full and open selection process for every every constituency Labour Party throughout the whole of the UK.
Jeremy Corbyn. Well, David Osland, a long-time Labour member who has written a pamphlet on how to reselect MPs, joins us now. Welcome to the Daily Politics. Why are you pushing this agenda now?
Well, it's certainly a big issue in the Labour Party at the moment, a lot of people talking about it, and, as Jeremy says, not one that the Labour Party can duck in the face of the boundary review. So it's a contribution to a topical debate.
Right. How politically motivated is it, in the sense that this is an attempt to try and encourage a well of support for getting rid of MPs that the left-wing party members don't like?
I'm explicitly saying that it's not intended as advocacy of deselect early, deselect often, kick them out. But I think there are reasonable questions around selection of Labour MPs.
Like?
For instance, where a Labour MP is known to beat his wife, it's possible that his constituency might not favour his return. Where Labour MPs cross picket lines or repeatedly say that they're thinking of resigning the Labour whip, then maybe they don't value their Labour involvement as much as they should.
Right, what do you say to that, Chukwuemeka? Are these issues on which we should be looking at deselecting MPs?
Well, I have to say, I mean, I haven't really come across many colleagues who've been talking about resigning the whip, beating their wives.
Well, let's leave that to one side.
The third item. But look, obviously, I'm completely biased. I'm an MP. I have an interest. But I think the system that we've got at the moment is fair. It's one that we've used for many years. And actually, what will happen during the boundary review, you have what is called a trigger ballot system in respect of sitting MPs, and then constituencies where we don't have an MP, we have a full selection process. But it's been brought up recently, and it hasn't really been on the agenda for much of my time as an MP. I was elected in 2010.
But many of your colleagues are worried about being deselected because of the change in membership.
Just a moment. It's been brought up by people who feel if you've got an excellent constituency MP, but they aren't deemed to be ideologically pure or sitting on the right place in the broad spectrum that is our wonderful Labour Party, that they should be punished for not sitting in the right ideological place in spite of the fact they're an excellent MP with deselection. And I think that would be a great shame. I think if you've got somebody who's a good constituency MP who might not always share the view of the leadership, and I don't think we want robots. I think that was one of the problems under New Labour, then I don't think we'd want to see them removed. And Jeremy Corbyn's he's a fantastic example. He was he has been a backbench MP who's been very, very critical of the leadership under 7 leaders from Callaghan through to Miliband. He campaigned to have one of them removed, Neil Kinnock. He's defied the whip more than 500 times, voting more than 200 times with the Tories. And there was never any serious attempt, or any attempt that I know of at all, to deselect him because of that. Partly because he's seen as a good constituency
Right, well, let's
MP.
put this to David Osland. I mean, isn't that fair enough? Why should membership be able to get rid of MPs, or encouraged to get rid of MPs that just don't share the views of Jeremy Corbyn and the leadership?
Well, the first point there, of course, is that members don't get rid of MPs. That's a job for the electorate. Their job is to select who they want to see as a Labour candidate.
But should they be people that are agree? But should they be people that always agree with the leadership?
Well, no, I'm unaware of anybody arguing that at the moment. You know, if, as Chuka says, we have many excellent MPs, and nobody would want to get rid of an
David,
excellent
there have
MP.
been, well, David, but many MPs have come onto this programme, Labour MPs, saying they have been threatened with deselection because they don't agree on certain issues and policies with Jeremy Corbyn.
I mean, in fairness, actually, let me say one thing, maybe in Dave's defence, is that a lot of people who have brought this up, a lot of them are not members of the Labour Party. They're the members of Tusk or the Socialist Workers' Party. They're not actually activists in our constituency parties. And they are often the ones who put it on the agenda. But to come back to Dave, though, I mean, look, I think if, say, you've got the example of a Member of Parliament who's been beating their wife, the current trigger ballot process allows for that person not to be selected as a candidate in the next time round. I think what I'm unconvinced of, I think, of course, you've got to have somebody commanding confidence amongst their members. But I don't see where in the system that we've currently got there isn't provision for somebody in that circumstance to be
Precisely what I'm
removed.
trying to do in the pamphlet is set out the rules as they stand
Why
now.
are you doing it now? Why didn't you do it a couple of years ago? Why the need to do it now? Our process is, if we've been happy that the process has been OK for the last couple of decades, then why start setting it out now?
As you say, the process is in the rule book, has been largely unaltered since the early 90s. Now? As I said, well, with the boundary changes, of course, many constituencies will have to go through with it, whether they like it or not. And there are the issues of MPs who are behaving in very bad ways, getting into drunken brawls in House of Commons bars.
But the principal one you're talking about there...
Let's not slur things that are going to be legally difficult. Well, hang on.
Eric Joyce is perhaps the example of that. He was tried, he was convicted, he's no longer MP. There was no need to change the process in order for Eric not to end up being the candidate in that constituency, which was Falkirk, I think, ironically.
Right, well, hang on. And to put to both of you, is it sustainable that 170 Labour MPs don't have confidence in Jeremy Corbyn as leader?
Well, my view is that we're a parliamentary party. I think being a social...
But if the Labour membership has changed, Amuna, and has changed dramatically, and they want to have MPs who represent the beliefs, the policies, the values that they hold dear, many of which they share with Jeremy Corbyn, then shouldn't the MPs reflect that? But
I think they do. We do share the same values.
Well, clearly you don't, because you don't have confidence in Jeremy Corbyn.
The big issue at the moment, well, I think a lot of that is to do with competence and other issues. And look, I mean, hands on the table, I nominated Owen Smith, but a lot of people who actually were in the shadow cabinet have highlighted the reason why it's been very difficult to do our job over the last few months.
Let me put that to you. I mean, is it sustainable for all those Labour MPs who don't have confidence in Jeremy Corbyn?
If they can convince their membership that they should be reselected, come through the trigger ballot process, then there surely won't be an issue.
Do you think they will convince them?
I think in the majority of cases they probably will, but in some cases I think that reselections will happen.
Right. Anyone particular you can think of who might be reselected for not representing the views of the membership?
It's not for me to say to activists in other constituency parties who they should choose. You know, I'm a member of Hackney North Labour Party, represented by Diane Abbott. On the whole, her membership are very happy with her.
Well, because, of course, she's very much in line with Jeremy Corbyn, isn't she? And
is an excellent local MP with a strong base in the community.
All right,
I think that is the case amongst most, the overwhelming majority of Labour MPs. And I just think, I sit here and I'm just dismayed and just disappointed, frankly, because what's lying behind what Dave's doing here is kind of like a threat. And that is not the way that we do things in the Labour Party. I've been an activist in my local Labour Party for the best part of 20 years, and I have never known this kind of atmosphere, certainly whipped up nationally, of threats, of intimidation. We're going to get rid of you. That is the underlying reason. Let's be honest about it, Dave.
No, I think it's a bit rich. I think it's a bit rich. Something like 170 Labour MPs
honest
have tried to undermine the leadership. To undermine the leadership. To talk of divisiveness in a context where 170 Labour MPs have tried to undermine the leader that the membership have voted for, when the deputy leadership of the Labour Party is circulating bogus momentum documents to start talking about threats and divisiveness. It's a bit rich, isn't it, Chuka?
Look, there's more than enough evidence on divisiveness, intimidation that has come out of Momentum. But I've spoken about this on the show before. Theresa.
This pamphlet and this discussion just illustrates once again how disastrously divided and chaotic Labour is. And, you know, the lurch to the left that we're seeing again is also illustrated by this. And I think that's very bad for this country.
Right. Well, I mean, it depends what, of course, Tory MPs would say that, and no doubt some of them are gleeful about this division. But isn't that the reality, that in the end there isn't a challenge to the government while this continues?
Like all Labour Party members, I'm really dismayed to see the state of the party in the polls. Yes, you know, the party as a whole has to raise its game and take the fight to the Tories.
Well, let's talk about shadow cabinet elections, because that was going to be talked about this evening at the Parliamentary Labour Party meeting this evening. Now Jeremy Corbyn is calling for members to vote on MPs to shadow cabinet. Is that a good idea?
I'm open to all ideas on this, actually.
Yes or no?
Well, let's have the discussion. I mean, the membership idea is a new thing that has appeared today. I'm sure it's completely coincidental that we're talking about shadow cabinet elections. Jeremy himself previously has been a big fan, has argued for shadow cabinet elections within the Parliamentary Labour Party. But I think that's certainly something that is worth looking at. But one really important point is that I don't think it's just all about the shadow cabinet. I think people can have a really important impact off the front benches, on the front bench. I mean, our deputy leader, Tom Watson, did an incredible job in terms of press regulation from the back benches.
Sure,
Stella Creasy,
but
the MP in Walthamstow, legal loan shark.
if members get the chance to vote for MPs in the shadow cabinet, then you could arguably say that so-called former supporters of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown will not be in the shadow cabinet.
Well, I think, do you know, one of the things I really wish we could get away from are all these ridiculous labels,
all right,
Blairites,
I'll remove those. I'll remove those. But those who
Labourite.
don't support Jeremy Corbyn, then let's put it that way, will not be in the shadow cabinet, will they?
Well, let's see. I think, look, these proposals which have been discussed are interesting. I think we do. One thing I do agree on with Jeremy is that we need to change the way that we do politics and the way that our party operates.
What, the kind of gentler politics?
Well, if, you know, well...
Do you think you've seen that with Jeremy Corbyn?
No, I have not.
Right.
And I think it's actually... The problem has been more a case of the people around Jeremy than Jeremy himself.
Right, who are you talking about? John McDonnell?
Well, I'm not going to go through names. I mean, look, we've already been talking about the problems with division on this show.
Do you think members should vote on which MPs are in the shadow cabinet?
Well, staffing a shadow cabinet, of course, has been a recurrent problem for Jeremy, hasn't it? I mean, people like Chuka refused to serve in
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect. Okay.
That's incorrect. Jeremy and I had a conversation. This is nonsense that's been parroted by John McDonnell.
Would you have served under
He and I
Jeremy
had a
Corbyn?
conversation, and we basically did not want a running commentary between what I was saying and what he was saying.
Yeah,
so
it was a mutual.
We came to a mutual agreement that I wouldn't serve, and so it's wrong for you to say what you said.
I think it is really divisive to raise this issue now, because it strikes me as a factional manoeuvre designed to get people like John McDonnell
You're not factional, are you, Dave?
And Diane Abbott out of the shadow cabinet.
You're not factional.
All right, and on that
We're
basis...
playing hardball, Chuka.
Well, there you go. He said it.
All right, and on that note of playing hardball, I'm going to play hardball. That's the end of the interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've been getting